Dear students, greetings for the day. Today we will discuss about Introduction to Composition Part 2. Balancing elements. Placing the central subject of an image away from the center is the primary aim of this rule. Even without the visual weight of the central subject, this can be achieved. Leading lines, the natural lines that follow the way we look at photographs. Different types of leading lines are diagonal, curvy, zigzag on radial. Symmetry and pattern. While clicking a photograph or designing one, it can be made more attractive and appealing by maintaining the symmetry of the image. Purpose of composition. The basic purpose of composition includes 1. For the effective communication. 2. For maintaining the harmony and balance in communication. 3. For ensuring the aesthetics, beauty, interest and pleasing of communication. It is through composition that the planned placement or arrangements of components in an artwork is ensured, especially in the case of painting, graphic design and photography and sculpture. The earliest form and maintenance of composition was done by artists who dealt with painting. It is a good composition that aesthetically pleases the eyes of the beholder. For ensuring a good composition, the selection and placement of elements are done with utmost care. The non-blank canvas. What is a non-blank canvas? Any art form like a painting starts with a non-blank canvas. The other visual arts, painting, drawing, graphic design, and sculpture, the performing arts, dance, acting, music, and the written arts, prose and poetry, all allow artists to start, more or less, with a blank slate or canvas. Interestingly, in designing, a canvas already exists. The onus on framing and eliminating the unnecessary elements while designing anything is upon the photographer or the designer. The only time you can start with a blank canvas while designing is only when the client demands for new designs in an entirely new environment. Canvas in other cases is already ready in front of you. The addition, deletion to canvases is done by the designer herself. Positioning. Positioning is one major aspect to check while dealing with composition. How is it possible to check the positioning and to understand you have done the positioning in the right way itself? In what ways can the change of position of something already in front of you is done? The chance to move whatever available in the screen is not available always. The only options left for a designer to ensure positioning in such circumstances are only by changing the composition. This change of composition is done by framing, or adjusting the position of the gear, or by changing the position by yourself. A zoom lens can be of help in these situations. It can help you by adjusting the zoom positions. Either the isolation of a portion of a scene or the zooming out of the scenes can be done by using a zoom lens. Natural abilities. How can one develop the ability to do composition? People are of the opinion that in most of the instances compositional ability is natural. It is more similar like athletic ability. Similar to the sports ability, a training from the part of the designer can actually enable him or her to be good at composition. The improvement of skills can be done with the help of experience, training and skills. Just like few athletes entering to the top of the game at the beginning of their career, you need not be worried about your immediate skills. You must believe in yourself that this skill of yours can be developed through constant attempts. Just like in any other art disciplines, this debate can be considered as yet another nurture versus nature attempt. An eye for composition is innate and natural. At the same time, this eye can be developed through constant effort. Forcing a photograph. Is it always desirable to study an art or a skill forcefully? Studying something forcefully without interest by the person himself or herself can have adverse effects. This effect is applicable to your mental, physical well-being in itself. A total reverse effect can be made if something is forced upon an individual. This is just like how things are forced upon individuals in name of schooling, education, physical activities, mental activities, and so on. The skill of doing a composition can happen at times without even thinking about it. Being overconscious of composition can end up in having a bad image. At times, not even having mental images can actually help in making a good image. Relationship between composition and meaning. At times, a composition can be incomprehensible. It can also become difficult for you to explain composition in words. At times, you are able to find composition, but you will not be able to translate it into images. Along with that, there will be times where you can find composition in image, brain, and reality. The creation of a composition should be spontaneous. A designer or a photographer should never hunt for it. At the same time, you should never be in a position of explaining the composition to anyone. The audience themselves must be given the exclusivity to determine the meaning of your image. Focus on the subject. A composition should never distract an image and its subject. The primary aim of the composition should be to identify, emphasize, complement, isolate, or highlight the subject and never distracting and deviating from it. If anything other than the subject is distracting the audience of your image, it means that you have distracted your audience. It must be certainly taken care of, especially while designing. Using certain color, shades, particular emblems and icons must be avoided. The designer must also to be ethical while dealing with composition and should avoid using designs that can have a connoted meaning in specific cultures and contexts. The basic purpose of the photograph should not be deviated while using compositions in designing. The eye's journey. It is the eye of the viewer that will make its way through the frame of the photograph. The path for this journey need not be predictable. The arrangement of objects in the photograph, the framing of the photograph are all guides for serving the eye's journey. This journey will allow the user to use the composition. Elemental concerns. The elemental concerns of composition as mentioned earlier are patterns, texture, symmetry, asymmetry, depth of field, lines, curves, frames, contrast, color, viewpoint, depth, negative space, filled space, foreground, background, visual tension, shapes. A person who is doing the composition should not be like in a quest to deliberately include the following aspects. These aspects should come in a photograph naturally. The composition maker should not be in a greed to include all the factors together in one single frame as well. Things will fall accordingly depending on how you picture an image and how your audiences are receiving it. Before using them, the composition maker must study, identify, recognize, and employ them in a judicious manner. Scale tipper. Scale tipper means breaking and making an image according to the composition. You can either be a scale tipper or not. But being a scale tipper should not be done at the cost of ripping the aesthetic beauty of an image. Rules to follow. Following a rule while doing the composition must be up to the image maker. The image maker should not deliberately try to include all rules in a stretch while doing a composition. Indeed, there exists the rules of composition, but one should make sure that these rules can be made and broken depending upon the kind of photographer you are. It is not that in composition no rule can be amended. There are photographs from around the world that has left to eye marks for being the rule breakers. The key of success while doing a composition is in understanding not to distract the audience of your image and complementing composition in relation with your image. Conclusion. Hope you all had a good understanding of composition. This module introduced you with the basics of composition, providing a theoretical and practical understanding. The rules of composition, styles of composition were discussed as well. Hope this module will help you in doing the art of composition next time you do designing and graphics.